have a culture around us that is teaching people that the government will pay you. The government will give you. We went through COVID. We have CERB and different things that we had up here where the government was just giving money to people. And it's like, I get it. I
Here too.
understand. But the issue is you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You need to be able to not be, because if the government's the one giving you the money, then they're the ones living your life, because they're the ones who now control your entire ability to decide how you're going to afford property, how you're going to invest, how you're going to do any of it, because they control all the funds. I said, so the question is, are you competent enough or not to actually make your own decisions? And people are like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you have to decide whether or not you want the government to be the person who makes all the decisions for you, or if you want to be that person, and it's totally up to you.
A broke single mom fired from Denny's becomes America's most sought after real estate investor. How does that happen? Well, that's me, Dwan Bent-Twyford, aka Dwanderful. But it doesn't stop there. I, along with some amazing guests, are going to teach you everything there is to know about investing. Listen, success is not exclusive. I can teach you, you can have it too. I can share with you. So I want you to join me for season 5 of the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. Cheers. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. I have awesome guests for you today. My name is Dwan Bent-Twyford. I'm America's most sought after real estate investor. And our motto at Dwanderful is people before profits. So if it's something that resonates with you, you're at the right place. I'm your girl. This guy today, he's going to be so amazing. I have Jordan Silvestor as a guest on today. And, you know, if you're a regular, we're just going to talk about things. So short intro. So Jordan, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me, Dwan. It's great to get a chance to chat with your client, your listeners.
Yeah, so we always start off with a toast. Everyone knows that listens regularly. They have a drink. So cheers. And all of you watching, cheers. And thank you for taking your time to spend it with us today, because time is your most valuable asset. And I appreciate when people take their time and spend it with me. So thank you. And all my listeners and watchers, thank you guys too. So everybody grab a drink. Everybody take a deep breath. Get rid of your stress and hang out with us and have some fun today. So we just like to dive right in. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just say your name. So everything's in the show notes, how people can contact you, and then just give us like 2 sentences of what you do. And then I have this little fun page of questions, and I'm just going to chat and ask you questions, and we're going to find out how you came to be
Sounds
Jordan
good.
Silvestor.
So I'm Jordan Silvestor. The best way to reach me is actually at jordansilvestor.com. I'm a realtor by primary trade. My dad was a real estate agent before I got in the business. And I've been real estate investor, helping people invest for most of that time through that. So again, jordansilvestor.com is the easiest way. If you want to reach out, you can reach out through the office, 519-960-0350. And you can get in contact with us that way as well. So those are the 2 easiest ways. If you want to see me, I'm all over Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
And are you Jordan Silvestor on all those?
Yeah, I believe.
Okay. So I'm going to hunt you down after we're done today and follow all your stuff. That's what I do. After I interview someone, I stalk them online. I follow every single solitary thing that they do. And then I try to help promote everyone, because, you know, we're all in the same business of helping people. So
it's a team sport in the world of education. And the one thing I've learned is perspectives matter. And I have a perspective and you have a perspective. And the benefit is they're not always the same. So different people get different ideas and see from different angles. Again, everyone has their life experience to lean on, and there's nothing necessarily always right or wrong. It's just how you feel about that experience and how you're able to invest and learn from them. So
now I 100%. I mean, I have people on from all walks of life, and not even always real estate. Sometimes it's about mindset or taking care of your body or whatever, because it takes all of that to make you, you know, a healthy person. And people think, oh, it's all about money, but it's really not, because you can have all the money in the world, and if you were a jerk before, now you're just a rich jerk. So,
exactly. Yep.
It enhances who you already are. So I feel like it's like it's like a whole community, and there's just a lot of moving parts to it. All right, so what is your favorite aspect of real estate? Because you said you were an agent, and now you help people become investors.
Yeah, so my favorite part about life is teaching wealth creation. So it's again the financial side of the world versus the sales side of the world. So as a realtor, a lot of people think it's a sales job. It's really not. You're actually just really a counselor who helps people purchase real estate.
Oh my God.
People tend to want something in their life, and so you have to figure out that what is the motivations of that. And so the cool part is I'm really just helping somebody a kind of figure out what it is they're looking for, and if they're not sure, help them to create the clarity in their world so they can make really informed decisions. It's not about the real estate sales. It's about what are you trying to accomplish? Are you trying to buy a family home so you can, long-term wealth goal?
Yeah.
You're trying to do an investment so that you can have, whether that's for your kids' education, whether that's for your retirement, whether that's just for some extra cash to do some more vacationing, right? Like what is your motivation? Because again, people's risk tolerances are all different. People's ideas are all different. And sometimes people are like, I want to do this and I don't see any way through. It's like, okay, well, let's put all the pieces on the table. Let's see what we're working with and let's see how we can go from here to there. And if you want to do it, most people don't realize they underestimate what they overestimate they can do in 1 year, but very much underestimate what they can do in 3. And that's a really good mentality because a lot of the first year is learning and stability and growth. And then you get into this cool spot where on the investment side, like once you've built the relationships that you need to really ramp up in the business, then you can start to do things. And once you get through the first few, you're like, oh, now I see what you meant by X, or now I understand why you told me not to go down this road, but this path. And here's all the little things that make the business learnable. And the cool part is I always tell people, I said, whether you listen to me or you don't, I'm still a resource. You're going to learn. I already know what's coming, and that's perfectly fine. But if you think you're smarter than me or you think you're smarter than our investors, that's cool. Like, hey, innovation comes through people taking risk. But I said there are certain things from a person who has tried pretty much everything you can think of.
Yes.
Most things have a function, and it's because there's a bigger engine at play than what we have in our perspective. The greater the perspective I've gained is lean on experts and then listen to their advice.
It's funny. I can't even tell you how much I agree with you. I tell everyone, I said, listen, you're going to learn through mistakes and mentors. And I am telling you, mentors are cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I started back, it's been like 35 years now since I started. There were no RIA groups. There was no Google everything. There were nobody coming through town teaching big seminars and workshops and stuff like that. And I learned by the seat of my pants. And I can't even tell you, I could write 10 books on all the things I did wrong, like so many things. But, I'm a quick study. So, like when I would do this one thing, I was like, oh, okay, I write that down. I don't want to do that again. And then I do this and this. But I really had to kind of invent a wheel because we didn't have all the things we have today in 1990.
Right.
I remember getting my first laptop or what are they called? Your desktop. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have a computer. I am like so with it. And there was just not that much information. Now you can just, you can watch YouTube videos on how to do every single thing in the whole entire world.
Yep.
Like everything. And it's just, I didn't have all those things. So I tell people, like you said, like, listen, there's so many resources. There's so many people that already have decades of experience. Learn, find a person you like and let them help you. Because you're right. The difference between 1 year and 3 years is like night and day.
Yeah.
My first year versus like my third and fourth and fifth year, and then versus my 10th year, it was astronomically different.
Yeah. Well, when I go back in time, I remember video games and you had cheat codes, right? So you could put cheat codes in. And that's really what it is when you lean on advice of experience, you're taking access to a cheat code. Now, if you want to learn to play the game and figure it all out on your own, go ahead. You'll figure it out. The world will teach you. I promise you, this is one thing I've learned. The world is going to teach you, and it's definitely not going to be nice about it. Or you can put in these cheat codes, learn and listen to people of experience. And again, it's not to state like I'm very much innovative. I really like to think I can change or do things, but that's where, again, you mentioned it. The information's available. The question for most people isn't that the information is available. There's been budgets all around, but how many kids finish high school knowing how to do a proper financial budget for their job and for their income and for those things? How many people know how to financial literacy? So even before investing, and this is why it's funny because I've grown up around it, so I didn't realize what most people don't know. And so I'm learning that, okay, so let's start at square one, financial literacy. What does it mean to really become wealthy? It's to spend less than you make. That's really the most simple way to become wealthy. It's have a portion of your income that is for investing and for your future that you're not spending today on the extra pair of shoes, on the the couple extra times eating out. Take that money and just sacrifice today so that you can have an amazing future tomorrow. And I have an 18-year-old. So I have a bunch of his buddies. They're over all the time and they're starting businesses and doing things. It's really cool to watch because I've tried
It is.
to instill this mindset of, guys, understand delayed gratification today will be massive, because when you look at, like, I'll be 40 this year. When I look at 40 for my son, that's 22 years away. I said, but I didn't delay a lot of the gratification. So I've had to struggle because I kept kind of pacing. It's like, oh, I just need to make 5,000 more. You'll spend it and you're not going to be any further ahead because you're just going to find something new, a better car, a better house, a better
Yeah.
whatever. And you're just going to keep spending. So sit where you're at for a couple of years, and magically this magic thing happens. You have money and you're able to invest it and put the money to work instead of you always trying to work to catch up to your lifestyle.
It's so true. When I first started off, I had waited tables in my 20s. So I'm in my 30s and I'm making all this money. And I'm one of those, like, I'm rich on Friday people at that time. And I had a convertible and I bought a boat and I bought a house and I bought jewelry and I bought diamonds. And I bought all this stuff. And nowhere was I buying rentals, and
Right.
no place was I investing. I was just like, oh my God, look how much money I have. I have all this stuff. And after a while, I was like, I don't have anything else to buy. And then I'm getting older because I had no financial literacy. And I'm starting to go to classes and workshops and I'm reading books like a crazy person. It's like, oh, I don't know nothing about how to invest. And I won't always be 30 and 35 and 40. And what happens when I'm 60 and 65 and 70? You can't just live up all your stuff. So it took me a long time to learn the financial literacy that is so readily available for people today. I grew up in Ohio. It's the country. It was like, get out of high school, get married, have kids, and go work at General Motors and work on a factory and make cars.
There
Like,
you go.
that
That's
was
not that
my,
different than Windsor. We have Chrysler, we have well, we don't have GM anymore, and we had Ford, and so this is a very much an automotive city. Most people,
yeah,
their dads and their moms all worked in those industries for years, and
yeah,
it's just repeat on the in that same cycle. So
yeah, yeah. Same in Ohio. We had all General in Detroit, like everything.
yep,
And that was like my whole life. Get out of high school, get married. So I got engaged. I got a job in a factory, and after like 2 weeks, I was like, "Oh my God, why would someone that loves me want me to do this until I'm 60?" Because when you're 18, 60-year-old people are like they have a foot in the grave and another one's halfway in. But then when you get to be 60, you're like, "I'm amazing. I'm not half dead," and I'm so happy I got out of that and was able to change my mindset because my kids don't know any other way. Work for
right,
yourself, own rentals, rehab houses, buy some buildings. Like that's all they know. It's like,
yep.
yeah, someone's got to be the first one that like breaks that factory job cycle, like you said, and where you're at too. And my parents did it and it's so great and they did it and they retired. And it's like, okay, well, God love you, but like it's definitely not for me. I mean, I
Yep.
can't even imagine. It's like, oh God, I can't even imagine what my last 40 years would have been like. So what is your favorite thing about real estate?
Yeah. So again, that's
What's
just
your favorite
helping.
area?
Oh, so for me, real estate, the investment side, I don't look at pretty, I look at practical. So
Uh-huh.
for me, the hard part, I struggle with clients who look at the house and say, I don't like the paint color, I don't like the flooring, I don't like this. It's like that's all changeable. Like these are the things we can easily fix. So again, the issue, and then this is personal, right? So it's not that I don't work with those clients and work through those situations. It's just like, guys, we need to be concerned with layout, structure, foundation, right? Roof, windows, like the things that are going to be 20 and $30,000 problems. Those are things we should be concerned with when we're looking at homes. Whether or not it's got carpet, we can upgrade to laminate, like or vinyl plank. The paint's cheap. If you do it yourself, it's a little more expensive if you hire somebody. But on the scale, like these are all very simple things to change. And so my favorite clients, of course, tend to be the investors who actually understand they're not going to live in the house. So I also have some investors who forget that they're not going to live there. And it's not to say you shouldn't make it, again, solid and sturdy and all of those things, but you don't have to like everything about the unit. You're looking for a tenant who does, not you. You don't got to live there. So I always find it really funny with those clients who are like, well, I wouldn't live here. I said, you're not, are you going to? Do you plan to move into this unit? They're like, no. I'm like, then it doesn't matter if you would live there. Will a tenant live here? Is the house solid? Are the things here? And again, if you want to renovate to what you're saying, then you can raise the rent a little bit, or you can rent it as it is and more affordable housing, right? Which is a big issue I know in the States as it is in Canada here.
Oh yeah.
Affordability, right? And so I always tell clients it's get out of your own way a lot of times. And it takes a few times around the barn to get them to understand that. And like I said, with first time home buyers, it's probably the hardest. But I still, again, I love to educate, to teach people, to watch them
Yeah.
go through that process, especially for the first time. It's just a cool thing when they get the keys to their home and they're able to like have their house in the process there. So I love that part.
I do too. It's funny because when I have students that are buying rentals, I'm like, listen, say this to yourself when you're in like the Home Depot. I am not going to live there. I am not going to live there. So say it on repeat because it doesn't have to be like what you want. But you're right. It has to be sturdy. It's got to be safe. It's got to be safe for kids. They want
Mhm.
to have a pet or whatever. But because, if I fix up a house to what I would like, I wouldn't be able to afford any of my rentals because they'd all be too bougie.
Right. Yep.
Because I'd have like the best of everything. And so, but I do mind. I make all of our properties nice too, because
Yeah.
someone's gonna live there, and I want to provide a home to my tenants that they feel like they
Mhm.
have a home. And I've got tenants I've had 10, 15 years. I just keep renting and renting. I'm like, dang, you could have paid for this house already. Well, you
Right.
did for me, so thank
Yep.
you. And they're just like, they just want to rent. Oh, I don't want to own a home. It's like, why not?
Well, again, I think it all comes down to fear and mindset. The education, people like, so I don't want to deal with tenants. Why not? Why would you? If you don't want to, there's these things called property managers, so you don't have to. And B, even if a tenant does do something to the property, like what's the worst, unless they burn it down, which you should have insurance, like even like everything that they usually bring up, it says, okay, so just so we're clear, the objective is not to invest the money. You just prefer to put it in the bank and hope everything will be okay. Like that's okay. Don't go, you are allowed to have that opinion. I said, but here's the thing, as we've just seen in both countries in the last minute, inflation. So money in the bank is worth almost 20% less. So if you had $100 in the bank in 2020 and you have it in there today, it's probably worth $80, right? So if you had
Yeah,
100 grand, it's
exactly.
worth 80 grand, and it might be worse than that. But that's just even looking at it on that scale. Whereas if you'd invested it, right, and let's say it still lost the 20 grand, at least it would be invested with the potential to recoup it. Right
Yes.
now, right now, you're not invested to recoup it, which means that you'll never actually regain that value. Whereas in an investment, even when the market tanks, the only way you really get in trouble is if you sell while it's slow. The problem with money is I haven't seen it where we've seen the it go in the other way, right? Where instead of inflation, we say deflation. If we see deflation, then fine. But that hasn't happened in a long time in either country. So
It's been, I know, gosh darn, our countries are such a hot mess right now. I'm
yeah.
telling you, America is like on fire with all these borders, all these people coming in, and all the property values around all those sanctuary cities. The property values are just tanking because everything's trash and people just they ruin everything. And just it's just like it. I watch on the news. I'm like, what the hell? Who? Why is this happening? I don't know if
Right.
it's that bad up in Canada, but it's terrible here.
Yeah, we have a huge housing crisis, but we brought in 1.3 million people. And I get that doesn't sound a lot, but remember, we're 10%, we're only 36 million people as a country compared to you guys at about 360, right? We're
Yeah.
basically about 10%. So when you bring in that many new people, and we already have a housing crisis, we already are in it, we don't have enough housing for the current people living here. I'm
Yeah.
not anti, I have never been anti-immigration. We're all immigrants to this part of the world for the most
We
part.
are.
But there is an idea where if we're supposed to be bringing people in for the opportunity to live the lifestyle of North America, we should be able to make sure they at least have a roof over their head and food in their belly. And if we can't do those things, then why are we bringing them into the country? Like that doesn't make a lot of sense. And if by doing so, we're also taking away the opportunity for a Canadian or American to find an affordable home because we're adding too much stress to the inventory. People don't get that. They're like,
They
well,
don't
prices are going
understand
to
it.
go down. It's like, how do they go down when there's still five people who want to buy one house? The only way it goes down is when there's five houses and there's only one person buying. That's how
Yeah.
you need to have the inverse. You need a supply of property. And I'm not even saying it needs to be that drastic, but right now, like that's why we're seeing values even in the current economic condition of interest rates, we're still seeing values generally rise. It is stagnated more in the US because we have
It
a
is.
5-year fixed. You guys have 30-year fixed.
Yes.
So we have amortization for 25 and 30 years, but we have to renew our rates every 5 years. So we don't have as much time to sit back
I
and
didn't
wait.
know that. You have to renew every 5 years?
Generally, so you can get up to when in Canada, most of our bankings systems run on anywhere. You can get a 1-year loan up to a 5-year loan, and it's still amortized though over the
Yes.
course of 25 or 30 years. So you still are in the same payment, but the the structure is you could go all the way to 10-year, but it's almost never worth doing, except most recently when it was 3.69.
Yes.
Because at 3.69 right now, you'd be killing it because right now it's 5.25. But
Yes.
forever at that very same time, you could have got locked in for 5 years at 2.4 or 2% in Canada, because again, we can go lower than the States can because we're on that same
Yes.
cycle. So it's interesting as we watch that. But again, for us, like, because again, being part of Keller Williams, it's a huge piece of the US market. So we were just
It
down
is.
at the thing listening to Gary Keller speak about what's going on in the US. They say 61 or 63% of the movement in the US right now because of interest rates is only divorce. So people who are getting, because they have to sell, it's not because anyone would want to sell. Who's going to break a 3 or 4% 30-year rate to go
I
to 6
know.
or 7? Like, and so when I look at all of this stuff, it's very interesting how yet if you come up to Canada, like if you grew up in Ohio, I can be in Ohio in an hour, right? I live on the
Oh
border of
yeah.
Detroit. So it's funny. I cross the border all the time, hang out in Detroit all the time. It's no different. Everybody's the same. We're different people somewhat, but overall we have like, you wouldn't tell that I'm necessarily a Canadian if I cross the border, vice versa. But yet what's so crazy is how different our economies truly are,
I
how
know.
different the States and Canada function in that way. And so I always talk with the Americans and the Americans with me, and we're always chatting about, okay, so what are you guys seeing? And they're seeing this. It's like, man, that's so weird because we're seeing almost the exact opposite. We're seeing transactions still be lower than, of course, they were, but our prices are still rising. Like we're not seeing stagnation. We're seeing price increases because we still have transactions happening
Yeah.
because of the forced 5-year adjustment. And so again, with that, most people would lock in normally on a fixed 5-year or the variable rate, which again got us into a lot of trouble because variable, of course, was even lower than the 2%. And
Yeah.
now today it's at 6.2 or 7.2 if you're on a zero, like if you have no discount on it. But yeah, anyway.
So I don't know how I don't know that because I interview people from Canada all the time. We used to be able to, I do a lot of owner finance, like subject twos. People deed
Yep.
me a house and I sell it to a homeowner subject to. And I used to put, 30-year amortized, but with a 5-year balloon. But after that big crash in like 8, 9, 10, the Dodd-Frank won't let you do that anymore. So
Right.
it's like, okay, so then I have to give someone a loan and we have to have like a verbal or like a written agreement that in 5 or 6 years you'll refinance this because this homeowner's name is still on this loan. And so
Right.
we're not allowed to do 5-year balloons anymore. And I was like, okay, you guys just cut into my subject to business. But you can do
Yep.
3 years. You can make them refinance in 3. But if they're doing owner financing from a subject to, they can't go to a bank. They're probably not going to have the credit good enough in 3 years to really refinance it anyway. So you have to give them like 5 or 6 or 7 years. That I can't pin them down now to an exact time anymore. Are you enjoying this episode? Make sure you don't miss a single solitary episode. Click subscribe, like, follow, all the things so you get notifications whenever time a new show comes out. And let your friends know about it too. It's amazing. All right, so if you want to learn more about real estate investing, just reach out to dwanderful.com. I'll send you some free stuff. Back to the show.
Right. You can't control the like drop dead date, like where they have to make this decision or not. And
Yeah.
again, there like if you look back at the '08 fall in the US, what was very interesting was you guys were lending at 125% loan to
Oh my
value on
God.
property. Like I remember that's when I jumped into the business. So my dad had been in real estate
Oh,
since '88, but I came in '08 and started working with him in '07 as his assistant. And I just remember watching all of that and trying to understand, like we had 0% mortgages up here. We went to 5% with CMHC insured mortgages up here in Canada. And you guys were lending, like people could buy boats. Basically they buy a house for 100 grand. You give them 125. They could go buy a car or a boat
they
with the
did.
extra cash. And I'm just like, how does like my brain just tries to process how does that actually work in any common sense? Like where at what point did that become a bank practice that made sense to the bank? And I still have never really gotten to the bottom of how that ever became a good idea, but it was something they were doing. And so I find it interesting again with the rule changes. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Usually the government regulation is not always a great thing. I find they tend to mess up more than they fix, right? They just changed our capital gains rule and raised our capital gains tax on us by 36%. So now we pay 36% more. So we were
Oh
paying, let's
man.
say on a $200,000 capital gain, we'd pay about $50,000. Now we're paying about $68,000, $69,000. So again, and they want us to, of course, create affordable housing for them. And then we, of course, if we're going to give that to somebody else, we have to sell it, which creates the capital gain. And we don't have the transfer. We can't push the gain forward like you can in the States.
I know.
So again, it's just so many of the things you come along, you're like, really? And the government's like, we're going to fix the problem. It's like, I don't know. I've watched Canada and the US and watched the government try to fix problems. They seem very inept at doing that. They create too much cogs in the wheel that slow everything down to actually get anything done. Whereas business owners tend to have this thing called profit they're aiming for and trying to
Yeah.
get to.
Yeah.
Whereas the government's like, we'll just tax more money. It feels like it's like, oh, if we make a problem, we'll just tax further, or we'll just print more money out of nowhere, which causes like, I don't like to get overly political. I just don't understand the logic of
I know,
how
I'm
they're
with you.
going through it.
I'm just
So
like, what are you guys doing? And that whole 125, I remember when that started, and I thought, and they had 2-year, 5-year, and 7-year balloons. And I
yeah,
would tell people when I would teach at seminars, like, listen, the market's going to crash. You can't lend people 125% of the value and then put a 5-year balloon, because of the 5-year balloon, if the house isn't worth more, everyone's going to sell their houses at the same time, which is exactly what happened. So
yep,
I used to tell people, like, listen, and all my students, like, hey, you need to refinance, whatever you need to do, because when this balloons come due, it's going to be a disaster. And I remember
yep,
talking, my husband and I were on the stage with like 400 people. We said the market's going to crash, and they were like, boo, they booed us. And I'm like, honey, we've been investing for decades at this point. I am telling you, everyone's going to refinance at the same time. The market values aren't going to be up. The people that can't refinance are going to sell, and the market's just going to go, which is exactly what happened.
yep.
So we were like prepared. We had everything refinanced. We had everything ready to go. And I mean, I know people that lost millions of dollars and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rentals. And thank God we were able to make it through all that, because we just like, I didn't understand how people couldn't see it coming. Like,
Right.
but how can you not see it coming? It's not like they have these loans forever. They're interest only. So they're paying this tiny payment on this house that should have a payment up here, and they can't
Yep.
afford it. And when the payment changes, everyone put their houses on the market. It's like, I don't understand. So I know that you guys probably know this too, but Ronald Reagan had that famous quote, like, the 9 scariest words are, I'm from the government and I'm here to
I'm here to
help.
help.
I'm
Yep.
like, stop helping us.
Yeah.
Stop
Again, I
helping
have a
us.
charitable mindset, and I'm a fundamental capitalist under the idea that capitalists should be giving, meaning that in the community we should have an altruistic outlook to give back to the people that need. But I also agree that I know better in my community that I'm living in who that need should be to, not to everybody who thinks they need. See, we have
I'm
a
with you.
culture around us that is teaching people that the government will pay you. The government will give you. We went through COVID. We have CERB and different things that we had up here where the government was just giving money to people. And it's like, I get it. I
Here too.
understand. But the issue is you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You need to be able to not be, because if the government's the one giving you the money, then they are the ones living your life, because they're the ones who now control your entire ability to decide how you're going to afford property, how you're going to invest, how you're going to do any of it, because they control all the funds. I said, so
I'm
the
with you.
question is, are you competent enough or not to actually make your own decisions? And people are like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, you have to decide whether or not you want the government to be the person who makes all the decisions for you, or if you want to be that person. And it's totally up to you. Because if you allow the government to keep doing this to you, you're going to get into this false sense of security.
Yes.
And then you're going to be sitting in this spot going, how did I end up here? It's like you just walk down the road, you chase the carrot, like the carrot's right there, you followed it right off a cliff, and the government, now, what are you going to do now? Because you're too far down the road in some extent. I don't think anyone ever really is, because I think if you change a mindset, you can change a life.
I
And
agree.
so I don't think anyone, and I don't like that. But if you continue, you get, it's this slow fade into whatever you want to call it. And you're just like, man, all you need to do is change that mindset slightly. I'm not saying you don't need support. I think a lot of people need support. We need to get them from where they are to where they need to go. And we should come alongside them. Again,
Yes.
mentors and mentees, right? Like, come alongside, coach, train, give opportunity,
Yes.
and then grow, versus here's just some money and hopefully you'll be okay. It's like, why don't we teach them how to take that money and be okay, versus just handing the money? And like, I just think we need a different culture in our mindset around how we
We
deal with
do.
human beings in kindness, in clarity. I don't think it's right to be out there berating people either. I think it's just bringing that's why I said financial education is a foundation, where I'm learning. It's like it's missing in a lot of people. And you'd think, because people have money and they've done well, they even run businesses, sometimes they don't even know how money works. They just
We
sort of
don't.
they've gotten lucky, might be the right word. They've just done the same thing for so long and it just happened to work out all the time. And they've never been in a problem till there is a problem. Then they don't know what to do. You're like, this is why you need financial literacy. Like you said, you started to read books, you started to invest in yourself, you started to rebuild yourself. And all of a sudden you're like, well,
Yes.
I don't know what I don't know. Let me go find
Yes.
out what I need to
Yes.
know.
I tell people all the time when they start working with me, I'm like, listen, you don't know what you don't know. So you can't just say, I want this wholesaling program, because you might come across a rehab, or you might come across subject to, or you might come across a commercial property. And so you don't know all the millions of things that you don't know yet, which is why I always encourage people to use mentors. So when I was in high school, I graduated, hold on, back in 1977. You probably were not quite even born yet. But in our high school, we still had home ec classes, and we still had, it was called family living, where we had to, they paired you up with a guy. And for a semester, only for a semester, but during that semester, you're paired with the guy, and you had to, and like, okay, you have this much money, and you had to do a budget, and you had to like plan a wedding, and you had to plan house payments. And they taught us how to budget and balance checkbooks, like not, but stuff like now they don't even teach kids anything like that. And so family living. So I remember the guy I got paired up with was like the most popular guy in high school. And I was so freaking shy. It's like, oh my God, this is my worst nightmare. Cause he's like, hey, and I'm just like, oh, I was so shy. But all of us had to plan. And like, we went up to the church and had like a little mock wedding. And we all had to do a budget on houses and cars and insurance, like all this stuff. So we spent 6 months, learning budgeting. And then the home ec is like, the cooking, the cleaning, all the things like that. But the kids now, they don't learn any of that stuff. They're just
No,
in school, they graduate and they get out. They don't know how to balance their checkbooks. They don't know how to use money and work with money. They get credit cards and they run them completely up. And by the time they're 22, they're ready to file bankruptcy. And because there's just nobody teaches that. And they don't learn it in college either here.
no, they don't. I don't think there's any financial literacy because a financially literate culture breeds a problem for a government. Because
Mhm.
when you actually understand what's happening, when you actually see the spending, when you actually look at the numbers and you understand the difference between government spending and like I mentioned earlier, corporate spending or business spending. Business spending has this fundamental requirement, which is a profit model. It doesn't mean it's going to work, but it has a profit model. Otherwise,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Government doesn't seem to have to do that. Like, I don't feel like they come up with a profit model. They just come up with a model of how to spend money. But
Spend.
there's like, what did you get for your money? Like we had one of Kathleen Wynn was one of our people. She was trying to do something in the in like the environmental crap around electricity and building stuff. She spent $2 billion on nothing. We have nothing to show for it. $2 billion just gone. And that's Ontario. That's not the Canada government. That's just this province. And so when I look at that, it's like, how do you misappropriate $2 billion and have nothing to show for it? And like she got voted out. So again, it did work itself out that she was gone. But again, it's like, at what point did we stop? Like, at what point did you somehow lose $2 billion where you didn't know it at 80 million or at 120 million? Like, how did you get to 2 billion before this thing was done? Before you didn't understand, I can understand it in the context of certain R&D, again, drugs and medicine and different things they're doing. But like, again, they still have a profit model that works and they function. The government just is like, well, we made a mistake. We'll just print money. It's like that can't be that can't be a response. Could you imagine if you're a business owner, you're like, oh, we didn't make enough money last week. We're just going to print some extra money and give it to the people in the thing. It's like, how, like, where's the accountability? And that's all I'm looking for. I'm not looking to get rid of government completely. I just want accountability structures in there, just like you would in business. And I think if you build that back in, I think you would have a better overall system where it's accountable to the result. And if you don't get the result, you lose your position. Like, you should be able to, I get people can vote, but I think there's not enough clarity about what they didn't do. I think like when I can't honestly tell you exactly what my guy's voting, what he voted for and all that stuff. But if he had to produce that and show, here's what we voted for, here's what that did, here's the results, here's where things went well, here's where things went bad, and you actually got to read it, you might be able to make a different educated decision. Whereas most people are like, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican, I'm a liberal, I'm a conservative, whatever you're like, you just do that out of like a knee jerk response. It's like, maybe we should look at, results, not ideology.
I'm with you. God, I could talk politics and business with you all day long. I just like, I feel like I get up on the soapbox a lot. People are like, I'm like, listen, I've been in business for decades and I didn't know anything when I started. And thank God I learned. But I mean, I've had to take some financial classes and I've had to do some things over the years because nobody in my life ever taught me more than balance your checkbook, work at a factory, and then retire. And that's it. Call it a day on your life. It's like, I don't want to do that. Like, it's so much more fun to be an investor and work for yourself and
Yep.
control your hours and your money and what you do and who you work with and podcast with awesome people like you and stuff like that. So what are
Yep.
you working on right now? Like, what's your next like biggest goal that you're working on, and how can all of us at Dwanderful help you reach that?
Yeah. So actually, the biggest thing I'm working on is I had zero social media presence as of September. Zero. And I'm actually in the process of building out with the podcast, with education, with videos and everything across all the platforms. My primary thing, again, as a realtor, there is a lot of real estate, but it is an educator. And I'd rather lean more into the education for people, for especially I got my kids 18 and 15 who I'm looking at. And it's like, how do we educate? How do we give them the one leg up? How do we get them into those things? So we're looking at courses in the background, looking at stuff designed more for the, let's call it 14 through 24 window.
Yes.
And really looking at some of how we reach them. So there's stuff all in the background around that. So again, the big goal is, again, create the influence, come with integrity, and then be able to bring education more than real estate. Like I am a realtor. That is what I do. I'm an investor. I think these are important, but the primary thing is if we can educate the culture and educate the youth of the culture, then you can see positive change in their lives, which is the coolest part. When I see these kids starting their little businesses and going door to door and doing all this stuff and doing like labored work to go get these jobs, and they're making money. Like my kid's running his window cleaning business. Other buddy's running a rototill business. The other buddy's running a lawn care, and they're all out there doing it. And they kind of worked
You're
within each
doing
other's
it.
worlds, but they're out there doing these things, and they're all like 16 to 18, 19 years old. And to me, it's like, it's the entrepreneurial spirit. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with a 9 to 5. If you're built for a 9 to 5 and that's your comfort, go ahead and do a 9 to 5, but understand how you're going to spend your money, and right. And educate yourself. Okay. So I make $45,000 a year. I'm going to put $8,000 of that, or $9,000 of that, into some savings, into some investments. I'm going to spend 10% of that. So I'm going to spend $4,500 that year on stuff I want. The rest goes to living, into cost of like just
Yep.
being in operation. And if you can understand that 60, 10, 20 rule, and again, we adjust it based on it's not perfect, but you look at that and you say, okay, so how do I give? And then from the growth and stuff, how do I give? Where do I give into the community? Because if you want to build businesses, you want to do it, the number one way to make wealth is in relationships, not in money. The
Yes.
trick of the game is in relationship with human beings, because if you know the right human beings, they always say it's not how much money you have, it's who you know, because the people who have money are more than happy to give their money, or lend their money and support businesses
Yes.
that are community minded and growth minded. I love to support these kids and see what they're doing, and
Me
do that as,
too.
as an entrepreneur and business owner myself. So I think, and I tell them all the time, I said, you should just go knock on other businesses. So if you're going to go do something, get a flyer, get a thing. If you want your flyers paid for, go ask a business local to pay for the flyers, and you'll put their ad in it. You're going to go door knock 2,000 doors. What business owner on the planet isn't going to say there's going to be a kid standing there at the door handing you something for their business, and your coupon or whatever you're offering is right there? Right?
Yeah. Oh,
That's
yeah.
such a different level than you get it in the mail from the mail carrier, right? Like,
Oh,
to
it's so
me,
different.
and again, so for me, that's like the big vision is in that education. Real estate is always a foundation, because I believe, like, again, a good place to invest, because it's where I live and understand, is in the real estate world,
Me too.
wherever that is, commercial, whether you're wholesaling, doing whatever you're doing there. But again, the more I learned about the stock market, even though I don't do it myself, I tell people, I said, what I've understood, it seems like, is dividend stocks are a very good place to put your money, because they keep buying their stock, and it kind of just grows all by itself if you just kind of
Yeah, yeah,
leave it,
yeah.
sort of like cash flow investments. If you don't pull capital out in the early years, you pay down that loan, and all of a sudden now you have this massive asset that's sitting there with value that you didn't pay for. Like you said, why didn't these tenants buy the property? Well, because they decided to buy it for you. So you
I
have these great
know.
tenants who bought you a home, and again,
It's
it's
crazy.
their choice. And that's the part that we want to try to figure out.
I've had so many people. I had Cynthia lived in one of my houses for 15 years, and I was just like, I don't understand. I was like, I could help you buy a house and I could like sell this one to you. No, 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 I don't want to own a house. I don't want the responsibility. It's like, but I mean, I've had a lot. I ran into a lot of Section 8 women and they would live in those houses for 10 or 15 years and like they're paid for. So by the time I, keep renting them and the next person comes along, it's like, thank you, government, for paying those people that paid me and paid off my house.
Yep. And that's the thing is again, what I want is I want people, it doesn't mean people are going to choose to make the right decisions. They said magically with Google, you could know anything you want to know. You can Google almost any answer to any question. And we're not smarter today. It's no different than the calculator. The calculator
No,
did not make people smarter. It gave
no.
people a crutch that they could lean on. Right. And so the issue is, I love the fact that if I can't remember specifically, okay, oh yeah, this model, the NOI model or the cap rate model, I can just go to Google and quickly grab it. But because I know what to do with it once I have it,
Yes.
see, it's one thing to have knowledge. It's also important to have the wisdom on how to use it. And that's where your mentor, again, I'm always going to come back to the people in your life, those mentors, these people who know the systems, know the models, have already made a lot of the mistakes. See,
Yes.
if I learned to listen better at a younger age, I would be much better off. But because I'm stubborn and stupid, in some respects, I'm getting better. No, but like honestly, I want to tread my own path. I believe that I am smarter than most people. And to some extent, that's not wrong. But at the same time, because I have found some more things that have worked, but the rule is if it's consistent for 20 years, it's probably consistent for another 20 years
Yeah.
if you follow the model. And yes, you might be able to get lucky along the way, which is what we don't always remember. Like my live lucky hat. You can get lucky, but luck is required by hard work. But the other problem is don't ever bet on luck again, because if you're always betting on that luck that produced that result, but it wasn't a consistent thing you can see and repeat, be very careful. Yes, that worked out amazingly, but if you now change your model to the luck version, you're going to lose, right?
Really?
If you leave it in the functional version, then you'll get lucky, because here's the thing. If you stay in the functional, you can't really lose because it's the operational thing. It's not to say you can't lose at all, but you're much safer. But if you switch over, oh, I made an extra 70 grand. That means now when I project, I should project the extra 70 grand on that deal. Well, no, that was just the way that deal happened to work out. It happened to have this thing that got you that extra money. Keep the model you're working with. And if it happens again, and now if it happens 10 times in a row, maybe you need to change your model. Like, but because now you have proof. But again, I think people so quickly over evaluate their success, and that got me, because like I said, I started to believe more in the result than I did in the model. And
Yes.
then I ran into some issues, and that's what I mean by I was betting on the market more than I was betting on the house. And that's why I've switched back to, which it's not that it was never true, but you don't make money on the sale, you make money on the buy. You
Oh, exactly.
always make money when you buy it. So you cannot
Make
make
it when
money
you
on
buy
the
it.
sale.
If you can get everyone to follow that, like you make the money when you buy it, people would make less mistakes. Because I
That's
at
it.
the beginning would be like, okay, well, I can sell it for that, but then you can't always sell it for that. So, okay, we're going to jump topics for a minute. Tell
Perfect.
me, I love your thought and I'm excited for this podcast to come out, and I'll put it all over social media and help you with your big goal is social media and education, because I'm all about like 100% about education at this point, because I'm like, if I could do this, like literally anybody can.
Yep.
Literally anybody can. What's your favorite band of all time?
Band? Oh,
Mhm.
that's a very interesting question. So if I had to go back in time, it's probably like, so if I go to my youth, it's probably Blink 182.
Hmm.
Going way back and seeing them live a few times when I lived in Toronto when I was younger, and different things like that. Green Day, like that was the secular side. DC Talk from the 90s would be another more on the Christian
I
side of
love Blink
things.
182. I love Green Day. I like them all.
Yeah. So that Blink always, I felt like, there's certain songs you just listen to them and they just sort of like you hear yourself in them. That's a
Yeah,
lot
oh,
of
yeah.
that music. So
Yeah, I like that. It's interesting because I feel like you can always tell a lot about people by what kind of music they listen to.
yeah.
Because it's like the bands that are your favorite, it's because their music speaks to you. But if
Yep.
you know that band, I feel like you have them a little bit more insight into the person.
Right. Yeah. And for me, when I look back at like the 90s rock and a lot of that, and then you have the Eminem of the, like, Eminem's probably one of my favorite artists of all time. It's interesting because it's just the way they speak, the rhyme, the beat, the way you feel. The issue can be, though, if I'm not careful, those can dominate me. And I've learned to stay, even though I like the music, I've learned that sometimes it's not the most appropriate
It's too much
thing because
cursing
it,
for me.
well, it sometimes the attitude that can be produced by the listening is not exactly what I want to emulate, if that
No,
makes sense.
I get
So
you. No, I understand.
yeah.
When like the OG hip hop came out, you had like Run DMC. I was like, oh,
Uh-huh.
I am loving this music, and then it kept getting like darker and darker, and I was like, oof, okay, I'm good on that. What's your favorite food?
Food, pizza. And I like pineapple on it, which usually makes half the people like, yeah, pineapple. Other people are like, you do not put fruit on pizza.
Now, I agree, don't put fruit on pizza, but my grandkids love pineapple on their pizza. So I've had it so much lately that when I get a pizza without the pineapple, I'm like, it's missing
Ah,
something. But at
there you
first I
go.
was like, who puts fruit on pizza? I was that
Yeah.
person. But I don't even know. The kids just love it. And we get Pizza Hut all the time. And now I'm just like, oh, there's no pineapple. Where did we get this pizza from? Why is it not Pizza Hut? And it's weird. I think you just develop a taste for it.
Yeah, well, it's a sweet and savory flavor. I do like it's called the Angry Hawaiian. So basically, you do pepperoni instead of ham, and then you do the hot peppers. So you have the three things, and that it's a fun one. It's a little spicy, but it's good.
I love pepperoni on everything.
Yeah.
What's your favorite part of the day? Out of the whole day, what's your favorite part of the day?
What is my favorite part of the day? So what's really interesting is I used to be a night owl, and now I'm more of a morning person. I still stay up late on occasion, but for me, it's when I first get up and I'm able to get moving. I usually do breakfast or do something very early in the morning with friends or things. That's probably my favorite part of the day. Getting up and just
Good.
going to hang out with somebody and have a conversation.
I love that. I love that. And so, just one more time, tell everybody how they can reach you and across your socials and everything.
Yeah, so the best way to reach out is at jordansylvester.com. I am on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. So you can reach out across any of those platforms as well. I'm looking forward to getting the podcast up and running with that'll be coming out shortly, and that'll probably be on Spotify as well. So, but right now you can search my name and you'll see all the podcasts I've get to be on, like this one with Dwan today. And so it's just been an honor to hang out.
Yeah, I know. I love having you on. I love people that just have really good energy and are easy to talk to, and like I don't have to like pry words out of them because by the end of a show like that, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say. I can't talk to me. So, all right, folks, if you enjoyed the show today, I want you to go to Dwanderful, DWANDERFUL.com and opt in to my website. I've got some free ebooks for you. So I took Dwan and wonderful and I made a new word. So everything is Dwanderful over here. And I'm on all the socials, Dwanderful. And I also want you to do me a favor. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, leave us a 5-star review and just say something like how great the show was, how awesome Jordan was, and how great I was. And just tell everyone how great it was and refer us to other people. Because we do podcasts to teach and educate you, and they're definitely a labor of love. And for us to grow, you have to help us grow. So please take a moment and do that for me if you would. And then, Jordan, the last thing of the day is I want you to give me a parting word of wisdom, but just one single word.
Um, Mentorship.
Good word. I don't ever tell anyone ahead of time that they have to come up with a single word because then they spend the whole show thinking about the word. And so now, so the people that listen to me regularly, they know that is everyone. That's your word of the week. So that is the word of the week, and they're supposed to focus on mentorship. But we want to know is what it means to you. Like, what does that word mean to you?
So mentorship, what it really means is where did I get some of the best advice I have to lean on? And so when you ask that, usually it's a different question. Usually it's what piece of advice would you give, like you give yourself when you're younger or whatever that one is. So I chose mentorship because I'm like, okay, where did I hear the advice? So instead of the thing, because for me, it's the people that have been in my world that have given me the advice when I'm in moments where things are not good, right? And life is not treating me the way I'd like it to and things are hard and you're able to lean on those people and they're able to give you small pieces. They're not trying to fix all your problems. They're just trying to help you get a better mindset to deal
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
Because one of the things when I look at mentorship, It's not that I want to fix the person I'm mentoring's problem. I want to give them the tools to succeed through their problems, because if they learn that, they win the game.
Amen. I cannot agree with you more. That's a good word. And I always like people to tell us what it means to them, because someone could say the word success and then what they think success is and what I think it is not the same thing. So
Right.
we always want to know. So everyone that is a regular Dwanderful listener, mentorship, and I think right here you get two great people that will help you on your journey, because I'm all about helping people on the journey, and you are as well. And
Yep.
there's nothing better than a good mentor that can encourage you and help you through the mistakes, or help you not make the mistakes at all, and just make my path was long. And I like to see people turn around and, make $500,000 in the first year and have a shorter path, less mistakes. And it's like,
Mhm.
isn't that great? It's worth everything. So first, I want to thank you for being on the show today, Jordan. And everyone that's listening. I know that time is your most valuable asset, and I appreciate you taking the time to spend it with the both of us today. When the podcast comes out, it'll be on YouTube, so make sure you go over to YouTube, Dwanderful Real Estate, and follow over there. And on all the social medias, you'll see videos. You'll see. We'll be all over the place there for a minute, and then you'll share on all of your social
Yep.
sites as well. So we're here to help you, and we're here to educate you, and I want to thank you, and I'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel, and remember that the truth is in the red letters. All right, everybody,
Amen.
ciao, have a good week.
Bye.
You just had a taste of the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. So just one more thing before you go. If you laughed, if you learned something, please leave a 5-star review. Don't be a gatekeeper. Share it with everyone that you know. And I'll see you back here next week for the most wonderful real estate podcast ever.